Check, check. Colvin, President of the League of Women Voters of St. Louis Park. I would like to welcome you to the Candidate Forum for City Council. Thank you to our candidates and audience for attending tonight and to our online audience for viewing. I have heard it's only available as a recording. ParkTV has been very busy, but I hear that's unless we've got different information. We would like to thank and acknowledge the City of St. Louis Park for providing this wonderful venue and ParkTV for their excellent coverage of our voter forums. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization and does not support or oppose political parties or candidates for office. The League has a long-standing history in our community of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that is widely used by Minnesota voters regardless of their political beliefs. There is never enough time to cover all the issues or to ask all the questions. If you feel that your question was not addressed, please contact the candidate directly, either after the forum or you're welcome to do that. I'm sure they're welcome to hear from you. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator. Moderators for candidate forums must undergo special statewide League of Women Voters training and must be from outside of the jurisdiction covered by this forum. We're happy to welcome back Jackie from last year and from 2 nights ago, a certified moderator from Golden Valley League of Women Voters who will moderate our forum tonight. Thank you. Welcome, Jackie.
Thank you, Shelley. Lovely to be back here. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's forum will last for approximately 90 minutes. Each candidate will be given 1.5 minutes for their opening statement. Opening statements will be made in alphabetical order within the ward and then ward order for all wards 1 through 4. A little confusing. After that, we'll use a randomized schedule to rotate questions across all of the candidates. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to questions and also for their closing statement. The choice of questions will be made by me in a good faith effort to reflect the interests expressed by the audience. Please remember that while respectful disagreement with a candidate's position is fine, personal attacks are not allowed. A person's public record may be examined, but not their character. If your questions were not answered, please talk with the candidates after the forum. We ask that there be no demonstrations in support or opposition to the candidates or their positions, and that candidates be allowed their full time to get their points across. All candidates on the ballot for St. Louis Park City Council were invited to this forum, and those candidates are, from Ward 1, Daniel Bayshore, Jerry Peterson, and Sarah Steffen. Jerry Peterson is unable to be with us tonight. From Ward 2, Jim Engelking. From Ward 3, Sue Budd and Miles Lerner. Miles Lerner is unable to be with us tonight, and he sent the league an opening statement that I will read shortly. And from Ward 4, Tim Browson and Sylvie Hyman. Please join me in welcoming your candidates. Our timekeeper, Deb, is in the front row and will hold up a 30-second sign and then a 15-second sign, and she also has a stop sign. And we'll call time to make sure each candidate has equal time for the responses. As moderator, I may choose to have some short answer questions, and if so, I'll inform, obviously, the candidates and the timekeeper. We hope to, again, receive many questions from our audience here. Please address your questions to all the candidates. If they fall in the same general topic area, we'll consolidate them to allow us to cover as many topics as possible. And the league collected questions in advance on their website. So we will now begin with our opening statements, and the first person to respond is Danielle Bayshore.
Well, first, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum and all of you for showing up and engaging in your local politics. I first moved to St. Louis Park, honestly, just following my partner, who was in the Metro, after about a year of dating him. But I quickly fell in love with the city, its people, its values. In fact, I fell in love with it so much that Kevin and I got married on our back patio at our house just down the street at our house in the Bronx Park neighborhood, because we couldn't think of a better place to celebrate our love. I can truly say this is the first place that I've lived where I'm proud to call home, because I know that St. Louis Park loves me and cares for me for who I am. And we're going to be facing some challenges as a city in the coming years. There are people in Washington and honestly our state who who go against everything that the city believes in. These people don't reflect the St. Louis Park I know and love, and I want to make sure that we need leaders who are willing to fight to protect those values of our city. I've served on the Human Rights Commission. I'm restarting the Bronx Park Neighborhood Association. I've chaired a national LGBTQ plus organization. And I'm looking to bring those experiences and my passion for our community to our council to be a part of the decisions that shape how we move together forward. I work in change management by day, where I gather complex data and help make sure that our clients focus on people during large-scale transformations. So I'm running for city council to use that expertise and my passion to continue looking out for all people, to make St. Louis Park a place where everyone can afford to live with dignity, is connected to our community, and feels like they belong.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen, please.
Hi, everyone. Thank you to the League and for all of you for being here tonight. My name is Sarah Steffen, and I'm running to represent the neighborhoods of Birchwood, Bronx Park, Fern Hill, Forest Lake, Sorensen, and Triangle, which together make up Ward 1. I moved to St. Louis Park in 2023 from a few blocks away in Uptown because of St. Louis Park's beautiful natural areas, the inclusive nature of its residents, and for its great location. I love living here, and I want to ensure that St. Louis Park remains a great place for everyone to live, work, and play. I earned my master's in public health from the University of Minnesota during a global pandemic. City policy impacts all aspects of our health, from walkability to safety and infrastructure to parks. Policy determines how we get around and the very nature of our environment. As your city council member, I will consider health equity implications in all policies, advocate for stronger policies to address disparities, and work to build a healthier St. Louis Park for all of us. During the Vision 4.0 planning process, St. Louis Park city staff have heard from many of you that some of your priorities are safety and affordable housing. I share these priorities and concerns and look forward to hearing more about your priorities for St. Louis Park during this time. I'm also passionate about supporting our small businesses and the employees who drive our economy here. I hope that you'll consider me on Election Day, November 4th, or in early voting, which starts tomorrow. And thank you for voting in this ranked choice election.
Thank you. Jim Engelking.
Okay, thank you. First off, informed voters are the foundation of local government. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for their work in making that happen. I'm Jim Engelking. I want to earn your vote to be your Ward 2 City Council person. Bring a unique set of academic, professional, and community experiences to this role. Have a Bachelor of Science degree in economics from the University of Minnesota. As I professionally worked as an IT consulting executive, helped organizations analyze complex systems and determine how to optimize those systems for a broad range of stakeholders. My extensive community involvement, both as a volunteer and in leadership roles, really informs my understanding of the needs of our community. So I am a retiree, so I understand the city council is a part-time job, but as a retiree, I have the time and energy to be able to engage our communities and be able to reach out and make sure that everyone within the city is heard and seen.
Thank you. Sue Budd, please.
Thank you. And as the others have said, thanks to the League, I am a card-carrying member and really enjoy the organization and the value that it brings. And thanks to everyone here who carved out time on a rainy night to come and listen to something that I think is pretty important. So I can't remember if I said my name. I'm Sue Budd. I was elected into this office 4 years ago. I had two opponents at that point, and we actually used ranked choice voting to determine who the winner was. So I was glad that it was me. As I moved into the position, I got some initial advice that said being on council really involves three things: drink, drive, and flush. And I thought, what is that? Well, drink is having clean water in everyone's home. Drive is having safe and solid roads. And flush means managing the sewer and waste management systems. That was very different from my platform, which then as now was around affordable housing and climate and sustainability and equity for all. But I wasn't in the office very long when I realized, or when I got a first-hand teaching how important the drink, drive, flush was when the water main broke out here on Minnetonka Boulevard. And I had to work hard to support the residents impacted by that. And I'm glad that we got that to a good place. I've learned a lot in 4 years, a whole lot. And really, that's the main reason I'm running again, is because I think that I am more valuable now. I can be more effective. I don't have a lot of campaign promises about how I'll change things because I like a lot of what's going on in St. Louis Park, as do a lot of the constituents I talk to. Thank you.
Thank you. To keep in the alphabetical order by ward, I will now read the opening statement of Ward 3 candidate Miles Lerner. Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this important forum. My name is Miles Lerner, and I am a third-generation resident of St. Louis Park running to represent Ward 3. While I regret that a family conflict prevents me from being with you tonight, I want to share why I'm running. My grandparents were welcomed here after World War II, and this city gave them a chance to build a new life. I want to carry that spirit forward by making sure St. Louis Park remains welcoming and affordable for families, seniors, and young people alike. I bring a background in finance, small business, and community service, including volunteering with CLUES, C-L-U-E-S, to help new immigrants learn English. My priorities are affordability, support for small businesses, and smarter planning for infrastructure and housing. More information about my campaign can be found at www.learnerforcitycouncil.com, and I am always happy to meet with neighbors to listen and chat. Every resident deserves a voice in shaping our city's future, and I will work hard to make sure that voice is heard. Thank you. Okay. Next is Tim Browson.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I've had the honor of representing Ward 4 on the City Council now for 12 years, which is a long time. I see a couple of the mayors I've served with in the audience, and I had the privilege of serving with Jeff Jacobs before that. I'm running for this job for the same reasons I was 12 years ago, actually 14 years ago when Mayor Spano beat me in a primary. But regardless, I want to be part of the continuing tradition of good governance that we have here in St. Louis Park. Long before I got on the council, it was well managed, this city, and it continues to be. We've got wonderful professional staff. We've got dedicated public servants on the council, and it'll continue to be whether I'm on or not, quite probably. I was driven at the time years ago to run on issues of promoting affordable housing, environmental sustainability, which I believe is a giant subject for all of us, and racial equity and inclusion. We've made tremendous strides in all of those areas in the 12 years I've been on council. I'm hopeful we'll continue to do more in the future on that. And I'm hopeful that the residents of Ward 4 will give me the opportunity to apply the experience that I've got as a council member and as a land use attorney during my day job and as a parent and grandparent to bring those experiences here on the city council and continue to share them. Thanks.
Thank you. Sylvie Hyman, please.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum, to my fellow candidates for participating, to all of you for attending, and to the Native people who have cared for this land for generations before us. My name is Sylvie Hyman, and I'm a 7-year resident of St. Louis Park, originally from South Florida. I'm an engineer, substitute teacher, planning commissioner, graduate student, and fierce advocate for active transportation and responsible land use. As someone who gets around mainly by biking, walking, and using public transportation, I will be a strong voice on the council for people who don't drive and those who want to drive less. We need safer streets, better connections, and viable alternatives to driving so that everyone, including kids, the elderly, people whose income and abilities limit their access to cars, can get around safely in our city. We also need more homes in more places to bring people and destinations closer together to make our city more convenient, accessible, and affordable for all of us. As a planning commissioner, I'm proud of the work we've done to eliminate single-family zoning in St. Louis Park, and I want to continue this momentum by eliminating additional restrictions that make it unreasonably expensive to build more homes here. I believe that affordability, shared mobility, and community connection are key to building a stronger, safer, and more welcoming St. Louis Park. And I'm excited to work with you towards those goals. Thank you again for being here tonight, and I'm excited to earn your vote and serve you as your Ward 4 City Council member.
Thank you. So now I will ask questions that were submitted both by the audience here and to the League's website. And you all get up to 1 minute to respond to these questions. And the first person to answer will be Sylvie Hyman. And the question is, oops, get on the microphone. Over the past several years, developers have been granted tax increment financing, also known as TIF, from the city to build apartment buildings. Do you feel it is appropriate for the city to provide tax incentives for developers? Do you have any perspective on how that process could be improved?
Thank you for the question. So with tax increment financing specifically, I think that St. Louis Park should have a goal of not needing tax increment financing eventually, but I believe that we should use it in certain cases to spur development, specifically for affordable homes in our city. I have more time. Think of more things to say about it. Yeah, I think that in St. Louis Park, once we do more to allow homes to be built in more parts of the city, those zoning like alleviations of requirements would make it so that developers can build homes here without necessarily needing tax increment financing because of the financials of the development being more lucrative. There we go.
Thank you. Sue Bud, please.
Thanks for the question. Tax increment financing was one of the steeper learning curves that I had when I first got on council because it is a very complex approach to encouraging development. And St. Louis Park has used it more effectively than almost anywhere else in the state. And what it does is it takes a piece of property that isn't being developed and has no interest for development and says, we're going to incent it with some tax incentives and encourage growth so that that property can now become revenue producing for the city. So there's a period of time when funds get withheld and it's pretty complicated, but I think the city makes a good use of it right now. It's important to watch how much we use of it, and it's been a valuable tool to encourage development in situations where there otherwise wouldn't have been any development.
Thank you. Tim Browson, please.
Oh, thank you. Tax increment financing has been a really important development tool in my time on City Council. Since 1997, we've approved 25 tax increment financing districts, and we've invested over $105 million of tax revenue in various projects in the form of a loan back to the developers that would assist them in addressing concerns we have as a city. And for that $105 million, we've seen $96 million worth of property turn into $1.242 billion worth of property. So we've gotten a really good return on this investment while doing directed development, where we've had a profound impact on our city because we've been able to get affordable housing units out of it, over 300 of those, or near 700 of those, and also push our green building policy on developers and hiring policies. So I think it's been a really good tool and we should continue to use it.
Thank you. Daniel Bayshore.
Well, I think Councilmember Budd described it pretty well, and I'll be pretty vulnerable with you. I didn't really understand what tax increment financing was. A couple months ago before I decided to run for the seat. I've learned quite a bit about it since then, still have a lot more to go. But from what I understand about it, we can use some of the funds that are captured through the TIF districts to fund affordable housing, public works projects, good things that we want to see in our city. But I also know from talking with our city's finance director that St. Louis Park is one of the larger proportions of TIF districts within our city compared to just about any other city in the state. So I think that there's a balance that we can strike between using this when it's appropriate and responsibly to fund some of those important projects, while also realizing that maybe eventually we want to get to a point where we don't need to use TIF tax increment financing for some of those developments. So I think we can continue to use them to keep growing in a responsible way, but also be mindful of how much of the city we're using, because it's withholding some of the funding that we can leverage as a city to fund our budget.
Thank you. And before I call on the next person, I'm being asked if everybody would just speak up a little louder. Probably that means me too. So let's all try to do that. So, okay. And we're continuing with that question for Jim Engelking.
Okay, thank you. First off, a couple challenges with TIF financing. One, to pay back the city investment, you're taking a decade, maybe more, of that tax revenue to go to pay back the city's investment. So that pushes tax burden onto the rest of the taxpayers. Secondly, that affordable housing is time bound, so it might be 15 or 20 years. There is a limit on how long those are affordable, and technically you're subsidizing market rate housing. You're not actually making affordable housing. One of the challenges is when you have a TIF hammer, and this is true for a lot of suburbs, every development opportunity looks like a TIF nail. That's what everybody uses as the de facto tool for affordable housing. I would encourage us, in addition to TIF, to look at other options, other ways that we can leverage a significant city investment to create potentially permanent affordable options.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen, please.
Thank you for the question. In general, I'm in favor of TIF, of tax increment financing in St. Louis Park, to generate or create more affordable housing. However, I do agree with Jim that we need more transparency around how long those units will be held at affordable rates. I know there are some plans at Beltline Station for affordable units right now, and on the website I was not able to determine how long that's going to be held affordable, so I don't know what the term length is for those affordable units. So I think we need to be transparent with folks about that. I also live in a new development along the light rail path in Triangle neighborhood, and it's lovely. And they also built an affordable building when they were building my apartment community. But that affordable building is not included in our community events. They're not on our email lists, and they aren't really a part of, they can't share our amenities. So I don't feel like it's necessarily being enforced at the city council level the way we want it to be. Thank you.
Thank you. And you will get to answer our next question first. And that question is, the city council has been discussing the role of the city's boards and commissions for the last year or so. What do you think the role of boards and commissions should be in relation to the city council?
Great. Yeah, thank you for that question. I think the boards and commissions do play a very important role in allowing more voices to be heard by the city council and by city staff, since they're a focused area for people with an interest in a specific subject to share their expertise and opinions, and have a dedicated space and time for that. I also think that we should be paying the community members who are on those commissions, and I believe that was just approved by City Council a few weeks ago, to have a $50 stipend for board and commission members. I don't know if it's for all, but I've heard that is an upcoming change, because that will make it more accessible for more community members to actually attend those meetings and to be interested in being a part of it, and will make our city more equitable for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Bayshore.
I think the boards and commissions are great. I am biased. I serve on one myself. I think it's a great opportunity for members of the community to get involved in the city government in a very specific area that they have a passion and interest for. I also think that I know that they cover a wide variety of topics, and I think our city council representatives are very intelligent folks, but they could never be experts in everything. And so I think relying on those boards and commissions to serve as a true advisory group for the council is a great way to hear what residents in the city are feeling and thinking about those respective topics, and getting some specific targeted recommendations and guidance from those boards, which I was really pleased that just a week and a half ago I was able to sit in the study session with the Human Rights Commission to provide some updates on what we were doing and recommendations for the Human Rights Commission to the city council.
Thank you. Sylvie Hyman, please.
So I didn't think I was going to be next because the order's weird, but cool. So I serve on the Planning Commission, and I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to serve on that and then kind of springboard into a council position. So I think the boards and commissions are great for giving more community members the opportunity to experience civic engagement in a way that's maybe not as high pressure as serving on the council. When I joined the Planning Commission, I actually originally wanted to be on the Environment and Sustainability Commission, but they weren't recruiting for that because they were trying to revamp the whole boards and commissions thing. I don't know all the details of what went into the revamp, but it doesn't seem like much came from it, and I would like to see those looked at, and maybe one of the things that I really would like to see is a transportation commission added as a board and commission, giving citizens, specifically people who don't drive cars, a voice at City Hall on a board or commission. Thank you.
Jim Ingoking.
Okay, first off, two types of boards. There's the one that are making decisions like the Planning Commission. There's other boards that are more of an advisory role, particularly the people that are making decisions, they know what their job is. For the advisory boards, we're asking citizens to give up their time, come, have meetings, do things, plan, prepare. What we really need is to have clear direction, clear charter. You're giving up a couple evenings a month. What does that do to help the city? Why is that important? So I think really that whole idea of very clear mission, very clear charter, and how does the work of each advisory commission flow into what happens at the city level, if it's in terms of policy, if it's in terms of ordinances, but really, help our citizens feel good about volunteering by making sure that they know how their work is positively influencing the city.
Thank you. Sue Budd.
Thank you. I have been a strong proponent of our boards and commissions. There was a proposal on the table for the last year or so to significantly revamp them, reduce the amount of time they meet, and merge them into a single body. And I felt that the existing commissions were so valuable to City Council as advisory boards that I fought pretty hard to retain them. They had been in a wait state for a while. With COVID, they went into this uncertain space and some of the seats weren't filled. But now, in the past year, we have fully filled all of the seats. We hear from so many of our constituents. And as Daniel said earlier, we can't be experts on everything. And these people on these commissions are really smart people and really experts, and they have ears in the community that are so valuable to us. So I'm glad that we are moving ahead with the model of how they were prior. And they're, I'll just say that they're very valuable to the City Council.
Thank
Big
you.
supporter.
Tim Browson.
Thanks.
Thanks. First, I want to apologize to the viewers at home because I didn't have my mic on for the last question. So this time, maybe you can hear me. The boards and commissions are obviously very important to our governance model here. I was on the Human Rights Commission in the 80s. I was on the Environmental Sustainability Commission in the 2010s, and they were important trainings for this job and also an opportunity to share my concerns and opinions with our civic leaders. And we spent a considerable amount of time. I was on a work group that worked on the current structure that we've adopted now for the boards and commissions. The primary feedback we got from the boards and commissions were you weren't spending enough time with us. The city council didn't have the time and capacity during the COVID years and afterwards to really listen to the boards and commission as much as we should. And we're much more intentional about it. We've added additional meetings with them where we debrief them and listen to their concerns and listen to their opinions and see how we can support them and how they can continue to support us. We'll continue to do that.
Thank you. And you get to answer our next question first. Housing advocates in the city passed the 30-day pre-eviction notice policy in St. Louis Park last year. What changes, if any, do you suggest to protect and expand tenant rights and housing justice in the city?
Thanks for that question. That's a difficult one for me. My day job, I'm a land use attorney, and I actually do some evictions for mortgage companies, post-mortgage foreclosure. So I kind of see both sides of this coin on a regular basis. I've represented tenants in court a lot, too. To its credit, Minnesota has very generous laws that protect the rights of tenants, and they need this type of protection. It's the right thing to do and important. I worried about the impact of the 30-day notice itself because the state law is 14 days. And I worry about a struggling rental environment here in St. Louis Park. We're seeing less development now. You put more barriers up to landlords, and it gets harder and harder for them to make money, too. So I think we're pretty good as far as the tenant protections we have in St. Louis Park. We have inspection requirements that are quite rigorous. We have licensing requirements that are too. We have tenant assistance programs available through our housing department, and we can continue to support tenants here in the city of St. Louis Park.
Thank you. Jim Engelking.
In our city, we have a lot of residents, business people that own naturally occurring affordable housing. So those floor plexes, those slightly older 50, 60-year-old, providing a price point even below our TIF financed units. Certainly tenants have rights. There's landlords that kind of take advantage of their tenants, but there's also small business people in our city that are working hard to provide housing in the city, and I think it's important that we strike a balance between protecting tenants' rights and also making sure that our business people are able to make a living and be able to evict that problem tenant that is not paying or is creating disruption, damage to their properties.
Thank you. Daniel Bayshore.
I agree with Tim. I think the city has a lot of really great programs and rental rights for our tenants. I do think that there can be a balance between the business owners who own some of those properties and the folks who are renting from them. With respect to the 30-day eviction notice, I believe it was the contingent of the vote that the council will get some data to see how that has impacted the eviction rates, the tenants' rights, and also how it's impacted some of the owners of the units as well. So I would be curious as a council person to look at those data and see what kind of impact it's really had, if it has changed the eviction rate, the occurrence of evictions, or if it's impacted the owners in any way. I also know that Sept, our St. Louis Park emergency program, has some good housing assistance options, programs available for residents too. So those are always available for residents who are struggling to make their payments for rent on time.
Thank you. Sylvie Hyman, please.
So I'm very excited and happy that the 30-day pre-eviction notice passed in St. Louis Park. That's something that I'm personally proud of, to the point where I went door knocking to inform people that it's a thing and that they need to know that if their landlord's trying to kick them out, that they should fight it, stay in their home, and there's assistance to help with that through Homeline and a bunch of other great organizations that work in St. Louis Park. For tenants' rights and tenants' protections, I think St. Louis Park already does a really great job, but this is something that can always be looked at, and I think that we should always be looking at how we can incentivize landlords to do better by their tenants rather than worse. Right now, our regional system is set up in such a way that it incentivizes landlords to kind of short shift their tenants, and we're kind of relying on good faith of landlords to protect their tenants, and I want to make sure that we have protections in place for tenants.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen, please.
Hi, thank you for that important question. First, I would like to say that I agree that STEP has a lot of wonderful programs for emergency rental assistance for folks who are struggling to make those payments on time. So definitely reach out to STEP if you are ever experiencing a time when you need assistance with your rent. I'll also say I use a health in all policies framework, and one big policy framework that's popular right now that I am a big proponent of is a housing first model. And so that means that we have enough housing for everyone and it is dignified housing. So if we have folks that are being evicted, I do think 30 days is more appropriate than 14 days so that they can find somewhere to move to that will be appropriate for their family. And then I would also just stress that I'm a big advocate for evaluation after implementation of a new program or policy. That's something I studied in public health school. And so I think since this is a new policy, we do need to do an evaluation and determine how it's working for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Sue Budd, please.
Thank you. I continue to be a big supporter of the 30-day pre-eviction notice. Eviction is a really tough thing for someone to go through. And there's a team in St. Louis Park that actually goes out and door knocks to people that are at risk of being evicted and informs them of various resources and their rights. I've shadowed them before just to kind of get a feel for, is this really going on in St. Louis Park and how often? And it is. And some of the people we talked to, I remember one grandparent with the 3 little kids running around and the son had just gotten laid off and they're just trying to bridge a gap. And there are resources out there to help bridge the gap, but they can't be turned on a dime and it takes a while. So we had several of those resources chime in and say 30 days would be a significant difference in this case. So that's why I supported it. I was part of a work group with the landlords on how it would impact them, and it's important to keep both sides in mind, but I am a strong supporter of it.
Thank you. And you'll be first for our next question, and we'll stick in the housing category. In your opinion, what is affordable housing? Do we have sufficient affordable housing in St. Louis Park? Does St. Louis Park need to do anything about housing equity and inclusion?
That's a big question. We do not have enough affordable housing in St. Louis Park or elsewhere. I think at a statewide basis, we're 100,000 homes short of affordable housing. What is affordable housing is there's a lot of answers to that, but there's certain categories. Our inclusionary housing policy says, you have so much percent at 80% average median income. And 80% average median income is probably the salary of school teachers or firefighters or people like that. 30% affordable median income is what we call deeply affordable housing, and it's much more expensive to provide. Our federal government has provided a lot of vouchers for the city to oversee, which is wonderful, but are also terribly at risk. So I think I answered the question with that.
Tim Browson, please.
Thanks. You'd never have enough affordable housing. I couldn't afford to buy my house anymore. I presume there's a lot of people in the audience that couldn't do that anymore. Since we adopted our affordable housing policy in 2015 and tied it to when we gave out tax increment financing, we've created over 3,000 housing units, new units in the city, and that's because we're doing infill development. We're a totally developed city. There's not empty lots where we can build homes or apartment complexes necessarily. So we're reliant upon private development to do most of this. With our policy, we've created 700 affordable units, including a bunch of 2 and 3 bedroom units. But that's not getting the job done necessarily either. The good news is St. Louis Park is about half affordable, including the based on the Met Council standards, and that includes, rental homes and others. But we've got to continue to pursue home ownership opportunity policies, which we've got a couple first-time home buyer assistance plans and other options to try to make housing more affordable for all of us, because you need a place to live. It's a fundamental right for all.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen, please.
Thank you for the question. I would argue that affordable housing is where it is only 1/3 of your income. So you have 2/3 of your income left over for other expenses. I have struggled to find affordable housing wherever I've lived in Washington, D.C., in Virginia, in Minnesota. Minnesota does have a better cost of living than some of the other places I've lived, but it is still difficult to find affordable housing based on many folks' incomes. St. Louis Park is doing many great things to increase the amount of affordable housing and to get first-time homebuyers and first-generation homebuyers into houses. I'm especially glad to see the land trust program, which seems to have been successful in St. Louis Park, and hope that that could be expanded in the future. And then in addition to TIF, I think we can think about other creative ways to create more affordable housing, such as duplexes and triplexes, which the city has approved on previously single-family zoned land. Thanks.
Thank you. Daniel Bayshore.
As far as my kind of human definition of affordable housing, it's so whoever wants to call St. Louis Park home can afford a dignified house or housing situation. I know there are technical definitions, 30% of an income or so much percent of the median income. I don't think St. Louis Park has enough affordable housing. I'm really happy that we've seen a growth of 644 new affordable housing units since 2015, that Tim mentioned. We had a lot of rental assistance program, people using the rental assistance programs last year. But when we talk about diversity or equity and inclusion of housing, I think we also have to talk about home ownership opportunities too. And I just don't think St. Louis Park has enough stock of affordable housing types. So like Sarah mentioned, duplexes, triplexes. The city council is doing a great job of trying to change the zoning to allow for that gentle diversity in density. But I think we need to provide some options for folks to be able to leverage some of those first-time and first-generation homebuyer programs, which over $500,000 of which was used last year alone.
Thank you. Sylvie Hyman, please.
Thank you for the question. So to me, affordable housing is everybody who wants to live here can live here, and they don't have to worry about being able to make rent or give up something in order to have a home in St. Louis Park. So affordable housing also includes transportation, because St. Louis Park is a very important place for us to be able to build more homes now, because the lack of availability of homes here means that people are moving out further and further away, increasing our environmental impact as a region and increasing the cost to the environment and individual people for having a home and being able to live in our region. I believe that there's 3 parts to being able to have housing equity in our city. We need to have adequate supply, which alleviating zoning requirements and adding incentives to build more homes is important. I have to stop now, but I could go on about this for days, sorry.
Jim Engelking.
First off, home ownership is really the foundation for creating generational wealth in America. So opportunities that we can provide as a city to help people who have historically not been able to enter into home ownership, or people who have been disadvantaged by past policies. Anything we can do there to assist individuals, totally in favor of that. Secondly, in terms of the affordability component, we have a lot of people who lived in their St. Louis Park homes for 40, 50. Some people I talked to, I had somebody yesterday that had been there almost 60 years. So one thing in terms of turning that supply, basically that house is their least expensive option for living. If we could provide some other types of, say, senior, some independent type living that would encourage people, facilitate people moving out of those houses, turn those over for younger families, couples, that'd be something to explore as well.
Thank you. And we will begin with you on our next question, and it is, if you were solely responsible for revamping St. Louis Park's budget, what are the first 2 to 3 changes that you would make?
Okay, which is a great question because it is budget time. We had a budget presentation last week at the city council meeting. First off, I think in terms of priorities, social safety nets being rendered destroyed in Washington, taking care of basic needs, food, housing for our least, our vulnerable citizens in St. Louis Park, certainly a priority. Secondly, from an affordability standpoint, I think it's important to look closely at our budget because there's an affordability issue in terms of tax increases. We have a lot of seniors living, people that have lived in their house for 30, 40 years. That tax increase every year, that starts to take a larger and larger portion of their fixed incomes. And, long run, that creates affordability. Can they stay in their St. Louis Park homes that they've lived in for, and many times, a lifetime?
Thank you. Sylvie Hyman, please.
This is a tough question for me because I'm not super familiar with how the city budget works, but I do know that we take taxes in from residents and we use that money for things like the police department, fire department, road construction. Basically everything the city does is worked into the budget somewhere. While I don't know exactly how I would change things, I do think that the priorities that I have are making sure that we do more to make our roads safer. And I don't think they necessarily need to cost more to make. If we just figured out better solutions for construction, we could reduce the costs there. I also think that it would be great if we could figure out a better system for taxing property. One of the things being a land value tax rather than a property tax. So we're taxing the value of the land that people are on rather than the property that's on it, encouraging more development and better land use practices.
Thank you. Sue Budd, please.
Yes, we are in the middle of all our budget decisions this time of year, and it's pretty tough. We will be impacted by a lot of stuff that's happening with from DC, and need to prepare for that. So, I think one of the top things I would do right now, we've just recently learned that our commercial property, which is part of that equation, has really gone down in value, and that's happening throughout the Twin Cities. Office buildings are having huge vacancy rates, and as that value depletes, that really puts the onus on other taxpayers in the city. So I think because we are in the middle of that dynamic happening, it's a time to maybe put on hold some of the fund balance building that we do. We are a AAA rated city, very proud of that, and fiscal responsibility is a really important part of how I approach things. And there's sometimes you just need to put the hold on some of the longer term investments.
Thank you. Jim Browson, please.
Thanks. I agree. We're always in budget time here at the city. Just about. We start studying the budget in April and we make our final decisions in December, and then the staff starts working on it again in February. So it's a constant thing that we deal with here. And I've got ownership of this, the budget responsibilities and the priorities. So I'm not going to say we're making the wrong choices here because I've been doing this now into my 12th year. State law dictates how the property tax system works. If we don't have any authority over that, there's going to be a shift of more of the tax burden to residential homeowners this upcoming next year, which we can't control at all. Even if we make no changes in spending, there's going to be a 9% tax increase for the average residential homeowner. So it's going to be difficult for us to do that. We have to continue to prioritize what matters to us, and that's good quality municipal services, and we're going to continue to provide those as best we can.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen, please.
Thank you. I would hearken back to the Vision 4.0 planning that is going on at the city right now. And while that process is still in the works, I know that some of the main priorities that folks have been raising to the city staff is for affordable housing and for safety. So I would want to make sure that those are both prioritized in the city budget. In terms of safety, I would especially go back to transportation safety. I know there are some roundabouts in the city that could really use flashing crosswalks for pedestrians and bikers. They're really dangerous, in my opinion, and people just drive right through them without looking for pedestrians. So I would want to pay attention there. I'd also like to use potentially more budget for trimming trees that are hanging over sidewalks so that folks can use sidewalks in the evening when it's dark out and they don't have to worry about their kids getting hit by trees. But I would listen to community members when making changes to city budget.
Thank you. Daniel Bayshore, please.
It's been so long. Would you mind repeating the question, please?
Oops, I have to see where I put it.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
I know no one's asked it yet, but I want to make sure I'm answering the right question.
Oh, yes, here we go. Sorry, my apologies. If you were solely responsible for revamping St. Louis Park's budget, what are the first 2 to 3 changes you would make?
What a responsibility to be solely responsible for it. You know, I think the city does a lot of things really responsibly with respect to the budget. Like Tim said, the state dictates how we dictates the taxing authority that we have over property taxes. So I think the first thing that we could do is look at other revenue streams that we could generate to try to supplement those property taxes and being able to afford some of the great services, the municipal services, the public safety, the parks and recreation that our budget does provide. To help alleviate some of that burden on the residential property owners. Like Sue mentioned, there's an imbalance between the residential properties and commercial properties. So I think we could take this time to maybe look at how do we redevelop some of those commercial properties so they are revenue generating for us. Can we renovate them to be attractive business opportunities, or can they be used to help maybe supplement some affordable housing? Speaking of that, I think looking for high impact areas that are going to impact multiple things. So investing in infrastructure that's safer, goes back to public safety, also connects us better, also reduces our carbon footprint.
Thank you. And you'll get our next question. We're just going to change it up and do one little short answer, 30-second one, okay? After all this talk about budgets. What is one thing you'd like to change in St. Louis Park?
One thing I'd like to change. I would like to change how the neighborhood association program is organized. I think there's a lot of great things about it, but as someone who is actively working to revamp and re-energize the Bronx Park Neighborhood Association, it's really challenging to figure out how we can spend the money that we're eligible for from the city on certain programs and programming. Also, there's a lot of responsibility put on volunteer residents, and so I think the city could offer a little more support, a little more structure around that to make it easier for neighbors to connect with each other.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen, please.
Thank you. If I could change one thing in St. Louis Park, it would be to increase business in our business districts. So specifically, the historic Walker Lake area could be a downtown sort of St. Louis Park. I would love to open a farmer's market there on weekends to attract more business to that area on Saturday mornings or afternoons, and work with residents to make sure that it's walkable and bikeable to get there as well. Thanks.
Thank you. Jim Engelking.
Okay. In the budget request 2026 for the police department, they've asked for pepper ball launchers and pepper balls. This is essentially the nuclear weapon of tear gas. Can incapacitate 2 football fields worth of coverage with this thing. I am vehemently opposed to that. I wrote my first letter to the city council last week complaining about it. It's not a message we want to send to our citizens that that's the right kind of support and weaponry that our police department should have.
Thank you. Sue Budd, please.
Well, if I could change anything about St. Louis Park, I guess one thing I would change is to have the light rail be live today. I wanted it live during my first term, and I didn't get that. They're starting to test the crossings and all of that this fall. That's most exciting news I've heard on the light rail for a long time, and it's due to go live in 2027, so can't wait.
Thank you. Tim Browson.
Thanks. If I had a magic wand, I'd make the aging infrastructure all brand new again. We wouldn't have to replace all the roads, which are now all 75 to 100 years old. We wouldn't have to redo the sewer lines, the water mains, all of those things. But unfortunately, we're going to have to. And we have to figure out how to continue to fund those changes.
Thank you. Sylvie Hyman, please.
If I could, again, wave a magic wand, I would right size all of our streets for the people who use them and for the future of our city. Right now, our streets are really wide. They require a lot of salt, which is environmental damage, and they encourage people to drive more rather than walk, bike, and use public transportation. So that would be my one change, is right sizing our streets and our parking infrastructure as well.
Now we're going back to the traditional 1-minute answers for everybody. And, Sylvie, you will be first for this question, please. What is your approach to environmental issues and sustainability? What city-level initiatives do you support on this issue?
This is a great question. So I started my career in engineering because I wanted to fight climate change. What I discovered in my career was that it's not going to be technology that saves us. It's going to be each other. We all need to work together to fight climate change and implement solutions that work for everybody when it comes to living more sustainably with less waste. And part of that is our streets, part of that is our homes, how we use the resources that we have, and how we protect the environment. So what I'm running for is being able to use our land more effectively, bring more destinations closer together so that people don't have to drive, and then also so that we can use less of our land for parking, which is a big contributor to urban heat island effect and excess runoff of bad things and all kinds of other things that aren't great.
Thank you. And again, I'm being asked for everybody to speak up. And I will do the same. So, Tim Browson, please.
Thank you. I was part of the task force that determined we needed an Environment and Sustainability Commission in St. Louis Park, and I was the chair of the first Environment and Sustainability Commission because I feel like this is the existential issue of our time, whether or not we're going to survive as a species. And as a country, as a world, we're not taking it seriously enough. St. Louis Park does take it serious. We adopted the first climate action plan of any city in the state of Minnesota back in 2018, I believe. We've committed resources to it. One of the things we as a council have decided so far in the preliminary budget is to commit an extra $50,000 worth of incentives to continue to encourage businesses to make necessary changes to their operating systems that will give us an environmental benefit and cut greenhouse gases. Can we do everything we need to do? No, we don't have the finances yet to do it. We're going to need to do that as a state or a nation, but it's important for us as a city to be doing as much as we can do.
Thank you. Subud, please.
Can you repeat the question?
Yes, I can. What is your approach to environmental issues and sustainability? What city-level initiatives do you support in confronting this issue?
Thank you. There are too many city-level initiatives to even mention that I support in this space. I mean, we are really a progressive city in terms of our climate action, and many of the programs are great. I don't know if you know about Electrify Everything, where you can convert out your furnace and your air conditioner when it ages out into a heat pump and reduce your greenhouse gas output significantly. That's great. We have a climate champion program where if I am managing a multifamily housing apartment complex, I can work with the city, get all kinds of coaching and assistance around reducing my footprint and greenhouse gases. I sit on a steering committee of the Minnesota Cities Climate Coalition, where we share best practices across cities, and that's a very valuable place to be because other cities are doing really cool stuff too, and learning from each other is important. So,
thank you. Jim Engelking.
Okay. I think really important to recognize it wasn't one thing that got us into this, one small or one big thing that got us into the climate crisis. There's not one big thing we can do to fix it. So the breadth of the city programs that we have, I planted a city tree last spring. That helps helps with carbon dioxide. Another element. I'm a big proponent of bikeways and bike transportation. I commuted downtown year-round for the last 3 years of my career. The Cedar Lake Trail is just a gem to have run through our city. So I think the existing program's certainly important. I think as we move forward, do we start to electrify more of our city vehicles? Certainly some capital investment to do that, but long term, that's going to pay benefits both in terms of cost and in terms of the care that we take for our environment.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen.
Thank you. I am really excited about a city program called Connect the Park, which is our implementation plan to create more bikeways, more sidewalks, and trails. I'm also excited about the city's initiatives to preserve our tree cover, our canopy, and to address disparities in different areas in their tree cover canopy, because if you don't have trees, it is hotter where you live. And then I also love that the city promotes grants that are available for multifamily buildings to compost. So whether or not the city is the one who would be providing the funding for that, they are telling landlords in the city, hey, this is available, apply for this. You could get composting for your multifamily building. And then to echo Sylvia a little bit, I really think it's important for us to bring destinations closer to folks in St. Louis Park so we can live, work, and play here. So I think a farmer's market or other live music events where folks won't have to commute as far and they can still do the things that bring them joy here in St. Louis Park would be a great way to help reduce transportation emissions.
Thank you. Daniel Bayshore, please.
Environmental sustainability is more important now than ever. Like Sylvia said, it's a lot of ways a human behavior problem. We have a pretty good recycling and organics program here in the city. We just need people to use it. Reduce the amount of trash that they're throwing away, the solid waste. The city's doing a lot of things, electrifying the appliances. I like Jim's idea of electrifying city vehicles. We have an aging tree canopy. I don't know if it's still storming, but I'm sure if it is, I'm probably going to go home and see several branches, maybe even a whole tree down in just my neighborhood alone, probably happening a lot of other places in the city. I'd like to see more diversity in transportation options. I'd like to see more adaptive reuse of buildings and infrastructure so we can cut down our carbon footprint. But whatever we do, I think we know, all of us agree that this is coming under attack at the federal level, and just taking a stand and being a leader in the environmental sustainability is a really big step. And I'm really proud of the work that St. Louis Park has done and that the council continued to fund that work in our budget proposal for next year.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen will be first for this next question. What are the top priorities St. Louis Park needs in order to thrive, and what personal strengths will you bring to the City Council to help achieve your vision?
Okay, can you say it one more time?
Sure. What are the top priorities St. Louis Park needs in order to thrive, and what personal strengths will you bring to the City Council to help achieve your vision?
Okay, thank you. I think St. Louis Park has a great planning process right now where we get a lot of citizen input to determine what the priorities are going to be for the city to thrive. Right now, the Vision 4.0 process is happening, and that will help the City Council determine the strategic priorities for the next 10 years in St. Louis Park. So I think a big piece of that is listening to community feedback and then implementing that. So we've heard from me before, but sustainable, affordable housing, and then community safety are some of those items for this upcoming vision planning. And I think some of the strengths that I bring to this are, again, my background in public health. I have my master's in community health promotion, which really means thinking about program implementation and then evaluation. So it's not enough to just implement a great program. You need to go back and evaluate if it's working, if it's achieving the goals that you set out for it, and if it's having unintended consequences. So I would bring that perspective to the City Council.
Thank you. Sylvie Hyman, please.
Can you repeat the question one more time? It's very long.
Yeah, I apologize. What are the top priorities St. Louis Park needs in order to thrive, and what personal strengths will you bring to the City Council to help achieve that vision?
Thank you. So the top priorities I have for St. Louis Park are affordability, shared mobility, and community connection. What that means, so affordability is we can afford our homes, we can afford our groceries, being able to get around, all these things are not eating into people's budgets unnecessarily. Shared mobility means that we all can get around the city however we feel like getting around the city. The reason this is a priority for me is a lot for environmental reasons, but also very personal to me. I don't own a car, so being able to get around without one is very important. And then community connection, bringing people together so that we can share our voices and collaborate on solutions to all of our problems. What I bring is energy. I show up, and one of my students today told me that I'm a great teacher. So that's what I bring.
Thank you. Daniel Bayshore, please.
I think some of the top priorities that St. Louis Park needs to thrive. I think we need to continue diversifying our housing options and affordable housing options. That's gonna when we all do well, when we all do better, we all do better. So provide those options, improving our infrastructure. This includes things like replacing some of the things Tim wants to wave a magic wand at, because we do need to replace those, but we also need to think about how we can adapt our streets and our infrastructure to better connect our neighborhoods and get around the city. And I think we also need to deepen community engagement. This is something that a lot of folks that I've talked to when door knocking, and a lot of the people who I know have moved into the city as of late, find that it's hard to sometimes break into the city and get to know your neighbors and cultivate that community. As far as my strengths, well, I am a behavioral scientist, so I have a few thoughts about the loneliness and isolation epidemic we're going through as a collective society, but I'm also curious and collaborative to a fault. So I will rely on the expertise of the people, the engineers, because I'm not an engineer, on some of the other things, and work to learn more about them on the council.
Thank you. Tim Browson, please.
Thank you. I think the priorities we need to continue to thrive is to continue the good progressive government and high quality professional management we've had for the city for a lot of years. And I'm proud of this city and the work we do here, and I think that's reflected in the fact that people want to live here, and that's why the cost of buying a home has gone up, because people want to live in this community. And it's a good problem to have, but it causes a problem as far as property values go and people getting in here. What I think I bring to the is experience. I've had a lot of time on this council. We're going to have at least 2 new members for sure, Jim and somebody in Ward 1, and possibly a third if I lose this election. I've been a city and county attorney in the past. I'm kind of a policy wonk, and I think we've got a nice balance on the current council between people that really get into the nuts and bolts of what we're doing and other people that make decisions based upon their heart and how they care about people, and I think you need both.
Jim Engelking, please.
Okay, where I see 3 priorities. 1, addressing the core needs of our most vulnerable citizens. 2, how do we take advantage, create affordable housing along the 3 light rail stops, and all of which are tucked very tightly into near residential neighborhoods. How do we create that affordable housing, create development, and still preserve the character of our residential neighborhoods? 3rd one, long term, how do we effectively manage and very prudently spend the taxpayers' money so that we're able to allow people to stay in their house, particularly older people on fixed incomes. What do I bring? I've got a BS in economics. Professionally, I worked in IT consulting, looked at complex systems, understood what's happening within those complex systems and infrastructures. What are the secondary, tertiary effects? Last, if you ask my kids, they'll say I'm kind of cheap. I'm going to bring a dad mentality to our city budget and city spending.
Thank you. Sue Budd, please.
Well, I'm not going to do the dad mentality, but I would say that one of the top priorities is along those lines, and that's that the city be as fiscally responsible as we can be, recognizing that there are a lot of residents that live on fixed income, that their house is worth more than they could afford if they were to buy it new. And so I think I take very seriously my role on council as spending taxpayer dollars. I mean, that's what we are doing, and that's what we have to do very seriously and responsibly. Another priority of mine is that some of the people have set up earlier is building community. I think our neighborhood groups, especially at least in my ward, there's just a couple of them that are active. And if people know their neighbors, it is just, when I go out on National Night Out, our National Night Outs are huge and very successful, and you see so many neighborhoods oftentimes saying, I haven't seen this person since last year, but they're still seeing each other, they're still knowing each other. So people want to know each other and accommodate. What do I bring? I'll just say, I'm going to say that it's tenure on the council. We are a very young council. We're losing 2 council members. And tenure on the council is going to be really important because you do learn a lot while you sit in this seat. So I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Unfortunately, it looks like this has to be our last question before we move to your closing statements. We just got a lot of questions from you folks. Let's see. First person to respond is Tim Browson. What do you suggest to make city council meetings and study sessions more inclusive and encourage more involvement from your constituents?
One of the things we could do is go out into the community and hold council sessions on the road a little more often. I've been pushing for this on and off for 10 years. We've got a community engagement vehicle to use so we can go out there and do it. It got stopped by COVID. We were starting to do that a little bit pre-COVID, but I think we could do it some more. It's tough because we have to have a regular working schedule because we're giving direction to staff who's got a regular working schedule, and we have to meet 4 times a month on average, and some additional other times. So it's hard to get out there, engage with the community, but all of us are open to hearing and listening to our residents anytime they want to meet with us. I don't know anybody on the council that doesn't say, yes, we'll do it right away. We're available, and we'd encourage the public to continue to reach out to us and share your concerns with us.
Thank you. Jim Engelking, please.
Okay. My personal commit out on my campaign website is I'm going to meet in person with every one of my 8 neighborhoods quarterly. So in terms of, how do we get out there? How do we hear what our neighbors think, what they need, what they want the city to do for them or not do for them? So quarterly, bring those out to each individual neighborhood, coordinate that through our neighborhood associations. If we don't have a neighborhood association, we'll meet with people and organize something. So really looking at how do we create that community engagement, also looking at monthly newsletter. Take a synopsis. People have so much information coming at them that it's hard to create time and look at what's happening in my city. Unless there's a crisis, then they look. But if we can kind of crystallize, give a synopsis of what's happening, what's important to people out in our neighborhoods, I think that will be useful in giving people opportunities. Oh, here's an issue I should be engaging in.
Thank you. Daniel Bayshore, please.
Learning a lot about how the council runs, running for council myself. I think there are several things we can do. Some sort of better synopsis of the council minutes, or at least outcomes and decisions, agendas, things that are happening. If you've seen any of the packets for those meetings, they can be hundreds of pages long. I don't have time to sit through and look through all of that as a private resident. So some sort of a better synopsis of communicating out what decisions the council has made, what's on their agenda, getting out there in the community more. I love the idea of holding some town halls. I would commit to doing that personally with members of Ward 1 if I'm elected, but I think the entire council should do that. I'm volunteering myself if I'm elected to do more as a council, but I think that the community deserves that, and we have a really engaged electorate. The residents are really engaged in their civic duty. And I would also, as someone who has attended several study sessions, I have questions and maybe want to provide some input. Maybe we don't need to do that live in the session, but I'd like a chance to do that or an opportunity to somehow contribute to those.
Thank you. Sylvie Hyman, please.
Thanks for the question. accessibility to council meetings is something that I struggle with personally because I work Monday evenings. I'm not saying that we should change the schedule or anything, but figuring out how to better reach residents is something that's really important to me. And a few of the other candidates also brought up neighborhood associations being a major tool to engage residents more in the civic process. So that's something that I really want to look at as a council member, is figuring out, can we, I know a lot of the neighborhoods in Ward 4 don't have adequate neighborhood association representation. And so building that up and making sure that our neighborhoods are represented and people from the neighborhood associations can show up to council meetings is really huge. And then also, we need more bike racks here at City Hall so that people can bike to council meetings. And we also need the infrastructure around City Hall to be more welcoming to people who want to walk, bike, and take the bus here. Right now with the construction, the 17 is diverted, so I couldn't take the 17 bus here, so I came super early to avoid the rain, which was not great. But yeah, just making City Hall more accessible for everybody, no matter how they get around.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen, please.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What do you suggest to make city council meetings and study sessions more inclusive and encourage more involvement from your constituents?
Okay, thank you. To make those meetings more inclusive, for the first part, I would say we need more folks to run for office. To do that, we could pay folks more for serving on council or for being on boards and commissions. We can also make the process of collecting signatures easier, or start promoting that it's an opportunity for folks sooner so that we can get more people to run for those positions. And then for the study sessions and city council sessions, once we have everyone elected, I like the idea also of going out in the community and holding sessions out somewhere other than City Hall, possibly changing the schedule around so it's not always on a Monday, but varying the day of the week. I would love to have free snacks at meetings, so community members would feel welcome to come and network with each other before or after the meeting. And I also think we can have more engaging communications from City Council. The City of St. Louis Park Communications Department is excellent, and I'm sure we could work with them on that.
Thank you. Sue Budd, please.
I'm sorry, can you remind me?
Yes, I can. What do you suggest to make the city council meetings and study sessions more inclusive and encourage more involvement from your constituents?
Okay, great. Council meetings and study sessions oftentimes can be very dry, and just by the content of what they are. So I would echo what some other people have said and look at outside opportunities to be more inclusive outside of those structured meetings. There's a lot of business that we have to get through, and isn't conducive to open to people that haven't studied the packet, whatnot. So anyway, I would, I do stay very engaged in community activities. There's lots of opportunity for council people to go out and be part of the community through various city programs. I love, basketball in the park where the police and the neighborhood kids get together every Thursday in the summers. I love, as I said earlier, National Night Out kind of stuff. Connecting with residents is huge and a critical part to that accessibility. And I will say renters too. Nearly half of our population are renters, and they do tend to get overlooked in some aspects of our programming and our communications. And so focusing on that is something that I think is really important.
Thank you. So now each of our candidates will have 1 minute for their closing statement, and we begin with Sue Budd, please.
Thank you. Well, I will just say the favorite part of this job, my favorite part of this job, is talking to residents. I love hearing from you. I love meeting with you, and I love listening to you. And so running for the position again encourages me to go out and door knock, and it's been really great talking to people. Some of my campaign team is kind of upset that I'm not visiting enough doors anytime I go out, because I love the conversations that we have. I love the ideas that residents have. I believe our city is very well managed, AAA rated. We have clean audits. We have minimal litigation. Those things are all really important to being fiscally responsible and being able to stay on task. I'm proud of that. I hope to advance some things, but more importantly, I hope to keep St. Louis Park on the trajectory that it's on, and while respecting the role as council of providing solid direction and leadership to staff. Very important.
Thank you. Tim Browson, please.
Thank you very much. Thanks to the League of Women Voters for running this. Thank you for all of you participating here. Thanks to all the other candidates, because it takes some energy and some self-confidence to put yourself out there and be willing to serve your community. And thank you all for that, because democracy thrives on choice, and I'm happy to have an opponent. I've been a resident now for 40 years, and I love this community very much. I've had the privilege of serving in Ward 4 now for 12 years, and I'd like the opportunity to finish up some of the work I've been doing, including riding on Southwest Light Rail once it's opened up, since I've been involved in that since 2005 with neighborhood organizations and others. I also want to see us continue to do the good work we're doing. Some of it like Connect the Park, where we've added almost 25 miles of bike trails and biking facilities in the last 10 years. It's important to do that while continuing to manage the fiscal responsibility that goes with taxing people, because that's going to be a substantial burden on people in the near future. And we're going to have less governmental assistance. We're going to have to make the hard decisions on how we continue to do this. And I think I've got the experience to do that.
Thank you. Sarah Steffen, please.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us tonight, and thanks everyone for attending. Essentially, I love living in St. Louis Park. I'm really glad I was able to find a place to live here, and I hope to be here for a long time. I went to preschool in St. Louis Park back in the day, and I'd love for the next generation of folks to be able to grow up in this area as well. I think we can do a better job of making it a place where everyone can live, work, and play with dignity. And whether that is increasing Connect the Park, bike trails, or whether it's affordable housing, or whether it's making sure everyone feels safe in their homes, I think that I would bring a perspective of health for all to the City Council. I'll also say that throughout this process of filing for office, everyone in the city has been extremely supportive and helpful, and that gives me great confidence that the city is doing a great job in managing our city services. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Bayshore, please.
Well, I hope throughout the night that you've seen the passion and authenticity I would bring to the City Council. Running for this position has been one of the scariest and honestly most vulnerable things I think I've ever done. But I'm honored to do it for the deep love I have for this community. I see the role of the council to serve as collaborative leaders that balance the needs and desires of the constituents with the expertise and guidance of city staff to make important decisions that impact residents' daily lives. As your next council representative, I promise to never forget you, the residents, whenever I'm passing ordinances, approving levies, making other decisions. This is a really important election because the next council will not only determine how we rise to challenges that we as a city are likely going to face, but will also set in motion the strategic direction of the city that guides us over the next decade. With Vision 4.0 process playing out. If you have any lingering questions, you can always visit my website, danielforslp.com, or just come up and ask me. I love connecting with folks. If you think I'm the best person to represent Ward 1, I hope you rank me first in your ballot this fall. But whatever you do, I hope you have a plan to vote and exercise that civic duty between tomorrow and November 4th.
Thank you. Sylvie Hyman, please.
Thank you again to everyone for being here, to the League of Women Voters for hosting. I hope my excitement didn't come out in too much awkwardness in the answers to my questions. I'm very excited to be doing this, but I'm also very nervous and new. But part of that is I want to bring new perspectives and a future thinking outlook to the council. I don't call myself a non-driver because I technically can drive a car. I just don't own one, and I don't have consistent access to one all of the time. But I want to be a voice for non-drivers on the council. And to leave that legacy, I also want to create a transportation commission so that non-drivers are represented at City Hall in perpetuity. I also want to make sure that as we go into phase 2 of the zoning updates this year. So phase 1 was all the residential zones, and now we're going into everything else. I want to make sure that those updates are really thinking about the future of St. Louis Park and keeping my generation and the generations after in mind.
Thank you. Jim Engelking, please.
Okay, first off, again, thank you to the league. Thank you for everybody in the audience, and thank you for the fellow candidates on the dais here. I love this city. I moved here 10 years ago with my wife. We welcomed by the city, and fortunately, I was in a position to give back to the city. Served as the Brookside Neighborhood Association president for about 7 years. Longtime STEP volunteer. I do a big pulled pork fundraiser every year for STEP. I'm on the STEP board of directors. I want to create a city that everybody can love as much as I do. So in closing, as you may have inferred from the introductions, I am running unopposed. I certainly, I'm not sitting back and relaxing because of that. I still feel I want to go out and earn your vote. I will be door knocking. I've been at a community events. I was at Taco Truck Tuesday at Vista Lutheran earlier in the week. I will be out in the community. I'm going to earn your vote, and certainly hope I can earn that vote in November. Last thing, 11 and a half hours to early voting downstairs at City Hall.
Thank you.
Oh, is it?
Audience here, please join me in thanking the candidates for St. Louis Park City Council for attending the forum. We received many more questions than we could possibly ask tonight. So if your questions weren't answered, please, I'm sure the candidates would love to hear from you. And I want to remind everyone that the views expressed in the forum are those of the candidates, not those of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement of any candidate by League of Women Voters St. Louis Park. Now let's hear from League President Shelley Colvin with her closing remarks.
Yeah, I would like to thank all of you for coming. I encourage you to tell friends and neighbors to listen to the recording. I'm glad the room filled up. I'd like to thank you, Jackie, again. Thank you for the city of St. Louis Park. This venue is wonderful. And to ParkTV, thank you. The League researches issues important to our members and to the health of our communities. If you're interested in finding out more about what we do and how you can also make a difference, please see one of us with a button on it. We'd be happy to tell you. Out at the registration table, there's a place where you can sign your name and we'll get back to you. Membership is open to anyone age 16 and older, and that means any gender. It's our legacy name is League of Women Voters, but anybody 16 years or older membership is available. We have an online voters guide, and it's vote411.org, VOTE411.org. It not only has information that the candidates might send into that voters guide, it has information about voting, precincts, state level, all of that. So I encourage you to look that up. Also, your websites, you'll be available, I assume. Links to all the recordings are on our website, which is League of Women Voters St. Louis Park website, lwvslp.org. It's also on the city website. It's on YouTube. Hope you could, it's on the agenda, I think. So, yeah. In-person early voting tomorrow. I think we've all emphasized that. And, of course, Tuesday, November 5th. 4th. Sorry. Now, look, I've led you all astray. Yeah, November 4th. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Oh, we get the.